Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Rightwing Nation, the series where I discuss general political events and stories happening in the real and all across the globe. Now, if you've seen previous episodes or even snippets, you kind of get the deal of what's going, the gist of like how this works. So let's just get into the first story, shall we? So regular viewers are accustomed to the fact that Jacinda Ardern kind of thinks money grows on trees, and she wastes a lot of money. Well, here's another segment showcasing that. She has wasted $34.8 million on the light railway that she said would get completed in 4 years. They have spent $34.8 million and have absolutely nothing to show for it. Although apparently they are now saying that they have a new plan, a new 6-month plan to get it finally off the drawing board. So $34.8 million have been down the drain, and there is nothing to show for their efforts. Now, apparently one of the ways that Jacinda Ardern had planned to pay for this light rail was her government introduced a regional fuel tax, which I think added 10 cents on the petrol pumps, I believe. Good to see that money went absolutely nowhere. Apparently there have been proposals by numerous different organizations trying to pitch a way of how they could get this light rail system to work, but none of the parties can agree on it. I don't know if that's surprising or not. I mean, it's not surprising that like all of the New Zealand political parties are completely useless, but it is surprising that they wouldn't just go with whatever Jacinda Ardern says. Yay? I don't know if that's a good thing. Apparently this light rail system is needed to help with the expected increase in Auckland population, because apparently, according to... Sorry, there's a car that drove by. According to these projections, the Auckland population in the next 30 years will increase by, I think, around, 720,000 to 2.4 million people in the next 30 years, which is a lot of people. Like, doesn't Auckland already have like 1 million people there? That's too much for a city. I don't know why there needs to be 1 million people, like full stop, let alone in one city. I feel like that's a bit excessive. One thing I'm not happy about is that the fact that apparently we're still going to be putting money into it as national, I think it was Transport Minister, I forgot his name, something Wood. I'll put this up here so you can see more of his details, but I've already forgotten, and I just read the article like a minute ago. He has said this most likely the light rail system will be a multi-billion-dollar project, and already has $1.8 billion put aside for it. Again, really wonder where Jacinda Ardern is getting all this money from. Hey, I don't know if any Aucklanders are watching this, but do you guys remember that time when you guys were locked in your own city for months and you only got out on, like, was it December 15th, I think? I'm pretty sure that's when the border opened. Do you remember that? Well, not everyone was locked in Auckland. One of the people that weren't locked in Auckland was Auckland councillor Richard Hills, who travelled to Northland or somewhere north, or he left Auckland for the birth of his surrogate child. Him and his husband went to the Ministry of Health, got an exemption, and they were able to leave, cross the border of Auckland and leave. Now, I think it is good that a parent is there to witness the birth of their child. I just wish that this happened for every parent, not just the politicians. So, for example, there was a man named Kevin. I fear I'm going to butcher that name, so I will not try to pronounce it. He was not given an exemption to cross the border to visit or leave Auckland to visit for the birth of his, was it triplets or quintuplets? I think it was triplets. I will have it there, but yes, he was not denied. He was denied an exemption. Now he surprisingly wasn't as salty about it as most people would be. And he thought it was great that Hills was able to see the birth of his child, but he was a bit, in his own words, miffed that he couldn't get an exemption, which is understandable. Now, this man lived in this place, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, because if I get it wrong, I'm going to get bullied in the comments, and I can't be bothered. So, this man, he lived in another city, and they are in a financial position where they can't afford to be without work. So if he went into Auckland, he would have had to stay there, and he had to be able to work. And so he was hoping that he could stay in his city, go to Auckland, visit his family, and then head right back, so that way he can keep working to keep financially supporting his family. But the Ministry of Health, in a letter, said that after reading the information that the man gave them, they deems his travel to be unessential. Apparently the man's wife is back in his city, but she may have to return to Auckland. And so that's a very unfortunate situation. My heart goes out to the family, and my hopes and prayers will be with them that everything will work out in the end. Here's another situation I'm not as optimistic about. Apparently the government will be stepping in to regulate social media, and they are currently working on legal frame rates to help guide companies like Facebook and how to moderate, Facebook. Oh, I guess it's technically called Metaverse at the time. Now, the framework, or I guess the review that they have submitted to Facebook and other social media platforms, covers a wide variety. I can't talk, hold on, let me retake that. It covers a wide variety of areas, some which are covered in various different legals, or covered in different laws across New Zealand history, or that have been introduced. And then there are some that are a bit more dicey and haven't exactly been covered, such as misinformation and disinformation. Now, this is, of course, the important thing, because when is something misinformation or speculation? This is the problem that I have figured out for a while would happen, because I don't really know if we should be regulating misinformation. This is my personal opinion. I think we should let all forms of information just flat out onto the internet, and it's up to the specific individual to find out what's the truth or not. Granted, this could lead to a lot of problems. I'm aware of this. There's a lot of fake news will obviously get out, but I think it's better than having one gatekeeper, just letting there's the public, and then there's the gatekeeper, and then there's the gatekeeper is preventing certain information from coming out, because then the gatekeeper, of course, has an interest in information that goes against him or her not getting out. And so this could lead to a lot of information that does need to get out, that the government goes against the government and their agenda, because every government has an agenda. They wouldn't be so keen on that information getting out, and so they might try to stop it. And because they are regulators of social media and that, they can. This is just a very slippery slope that I'm concerned with in government regulating social media. There has also been talk about content which, while may not be illegal, may be harmful, that they're trying to figure out how they're going to deal with. Which, you gotta love politicians, how they speak. I mean, you don't, but it's kind of amusing how they're like, oh, well, there is there is content that may not be illegal, but we certainly have to deal with. Not that I know, I'm just saying we might have to bring that up, might be a problem. Good old politicians, not offering any solutions. So we all know that politicians suck. Yes. But you know what sucks even more? In a different way, Hollywood. Now, you may have seen that this is the 3rd episode and we're talking about celebrities. You're like, why are we doing this? We've gone with serious political stories and talking about politicians, policies, vaccine mandates. Why are we now all of a sudden discussing Hollywood and celebrities? I don't like the MCU fans at all. This is a bit about my personally, I enjoy the MCU, not all of the MCU movies, but and contents, but I enjoy quite a bit of the MCU. I hate the MCU fan base. This is a personal side tangent. I think they're very toxic. And I figured, since this is somewhat related to politics, I'll bring up this. Apparently fans are calling for Letitia Wright to be the star of Shuri from Black Panther to be fired over apparently anti-vax views or opinions on. I'm not entirely sure, Apparently, she did share a video post commenting her concerns or mentioning concerns about vaccine safety, which is fair enough. If you're going to inject yourself with something, you should have concerns about what it is and should do research. But apparently she shared a video. She didn't delete it, because of course she did. The MCU fans are now calling for Letitia Wright to resign. And I've also seen, I don't think I have the tweet anywhere, but I've seen a tweet of someone just mentioning about how, with her being an anti-vaxxer, and if she isn't, which I don't even know if she's vaccinated or not, personally I don't care, that's her personal decision, but it's like, they're probably putting in, she would have put Chadwick Boseman in danger if he was alive, which he's not alive, so that's an irrelevant point. But even if he was, and that was a relevant point, which it really isn't, the reason it's like he would have been put in danger is because of his compromised immune system. I'm not too sure about his health, what his health situation was like, but because of his immune system, he might have been at more danger. I'll get to that. Is not entirely, just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you're inherently safer, but I'll get to that in a bit later. That's a later segment that you guys will see if you stick around. So, but yeah. The MCU fans have turned on Letitia Wright and are now clamoring for her to be fired because the MCU fans suck. Which, hey, you want to join the DC EU? You could be... I was going to say Batgirl, but they've already got Barbara Gordon. No, Jessica Cruz is Hispanic. Terra? She could be a good Terra. Blackfire. Oh, that would be... Although, maybe she's a bit too young to be Blackfire. Wait, how old is she? But apparently Letitia Wright might not even return to Black Panther 2, or might be leaving Marvel, which sucks, because then the MCU fans get what they want, and... Well, they suck, and they don't deserve what they want. You know what else sucks? Dr. Anthony Fauci. Which is surprising that we haven't covered Dr. Anthony Fauci. And, like, considering how long we've done this for. So, what are we discussing now? Well, apparently, the NIAD, which is, I think, Anthony Fauci, what he works for, or an organization that he's connected to, now, I don't know how many of you have been paying attention to politics or in America, but for months, we had people like mainly Senator Rand Paul. He was like the main dude championing this, with some other Republicans as well. Apparently, for months, that was not true, and that was fake news, obviously. But now, apparently, it did fund the lab. Apparently, it did, and it did fund gain-of-function research, which involved on a bat, but that research they funded. The grant that they give, that the organization gave to the Wuhan lab, it was not used for COVID-19. Apparently. Because apparently the two viruses are genetically different. I don't know how accurate that is. I am not a virologist. Now, apparently they were experimenting to see if this virus from a bat could affect, I don't know if it was humans, if it was mice, or was it both. It's a bit confusing because I'm not a scientist, again, as I said, but I will make sure that it's what the explanation is on here on the screen so you guys can read. But apparently how NIAD had it in the terms and conditions was where they made sure that it was sort of fake, like not fake, but Eco Health Alliance had to do something. They didn't do it. I can't exactly remember what it was. It's a bit confusing. But because of that, they now have, like, I think 5 days to hand all of the research they had back to NIAD. Okay, correction. It was NIH, not NIAD. I don't know the difference. And this is all very too similar. Seriously, America, what is with all of your health organizations all sounding the same? Although I guess New Zealand does have the Ministry of Justice, health, transport, finance, food, donuts. So I guess we can't really judge. But apparently part of why the NIH was not concerned or not bothered and okay and willing to give the grant to Eco Health Alliance was because, based on their research, it had been shown that the pathogens that they were working with could not affect humans, so they had no reason to believe that a pandemic would break out. But apparently, again, this is apparently not COVID-19. Apparently the two viruses are genetically distant, and I'm not a virologist or anything like that, so I wouldn't know. Okay, now on to a story that's less confusing. Joe Biden sucks. Yeah, that's the story. That's the whole story. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave now. You know, that's all you need to know. I'm going to leave now. Goodbye. For a lot of what we've covered with Joe Biden, it's very on Rightwing Nation. A lot of it's been related to COVID-19. We haven't really seen a lot of Joe Biden outside of that. I mean, we probably have. I've been doing this so long, I've forgotten all the stories that I've told. But yes. So let's talk about something that I could see people supporting, but personally, I don't really see the necessity in one policy he did. Well, I don't know if it was him directly, but apparently the Department of Labor has announced that a $10 million, I don't know if it was grant or what it's labeled as, but $10 million will be going to Mexico to help for a variety of things. Apparently, it will be funding a project that will be increasing women's wages, protections in the workplace to protect against harassment, and various other things. As well as this is mainly apparent, this has been headlined as it is Joe Biden granting $10 million to help gender equity in Mexico. Not equality of opportunities, equity. Yeah. Any economist or person who knows a bit about money knows that it's not really what you want to strive for when it comes to making political action. Okay, I don't know how to word this, but I'll just explain what I mean. So, I believe that everyone should have equal opportunities. We should, whether it's a man or a woman, white, black, Asian, doesn't matter your race, your ethnicity, or your gender, everyone should have the ability to strive for greatness and have equal opportunities in terms of the law. Now, I am aware that some people would have a bit more advantages than people, whether it due to being where they were born or the skills that they have. For example, someone who has a degree in engineering is going to have a significantly higher advantage in making money than someone who has a degree in liberal arts. So there's stuff like that that really cannot be helped. But what this seemingly is to do, because how this is headlined as, it's really weird because it's headlined as about gender equity, but then you read it and it doesn't mention too much about gender equity aside from wages. What this is headlined as it's going to be giving more equity to women in Mexico, which I know a lot of people are saying, well, what's the problem with that? Why is America giving money to Mexico to help, give gender equity? Why is America just throwing $10 million to Mexico and here you go. Here's to help a problem that really is sort of your own. You'd think that America would be, or Joe Biden would use this $10 million to help better the lives of his American citizens. Not throw it to Mexico, where we won't even know what they're going to do with it, aside from, again, finance a project, which it kind of feels vague. I guess that there might be more to it. There probably is. But I just don't know if... I think because America has a lot of problems, as I've discussed on this show, and I feel like the $10 million could be better used in America than in Mexico. And I'd say it's the same, I don't think Mexico should be giving $10 million to America to help fund gender equity there. I think they might want to focus on bettering the economy and their own citizens and making things better for them before you go out and help others, because if you're going to go out and help others, you really best have sorted yourself out first. But the idea that it's meant to finance equity, not opportunities, is just weird to me. Like, how is that going? How are you going to increase equity? Are you going to be giving out more money? Because it's not opportunities. It didn't say, it's not headlined as opportunities, it's equity. So how's that going to work? Now, I know what you're thinking, but wait a minute. I thought we were going to do Meanwhile in Australia. Why are we doing this new segment about the rest of the world? Well, I don't really have much for Australia in terms of stories. I have one, but I have a few more stories about stuff that's happening in the rest of the world, so I'm going to cover those stories, and I don't know. Once I get 2 more stories for Australia, then we'll cover Australia. But for now, let's discuss events happening around the world. Apparently, a bunch of researchers in Israel did I say that correctly? Anyway, those researchers have said that the COVID vaccines, would have killed more people than the disease itself would have killed in the given time. So, for example, during the 5-week period of vaccination in I think Israel, the vaccines themselves killed 40 times more people than the disease itself would have in that same time. But apparently these numbers might actually even be lower than the real numbers, because these are just mentioning cases that were deemed as COVID-19 deaths and not other events like strokes or cardiac arrest or like any other sort of similar events. But apparently our good old friend Dr. Anthony Fauci himself has made a cameo in this article, as they referenced a time in an interview when he went off at vaccine critics for having a misplaced opinion on an individual's rights when it affects or supersedes societal safety or something. I don't know the words he used. It's a freaking word salad, but you get the quote is here, so you can properly understand the damn thesaurus he used. I don't know. It was a lot of words. Apparently, as of November 16th, also we have learned that in just 3 days, more people died due to a suspected serious event after being injected with the vaccine than people who have died of COVID-19 in 14 months. In the Cayman Islands, cases are up 6,565%, despite the fact that 86% of the population of the Cayman Islands have been vaccinated. And that leads to, I think, was it like 1,100 cases a day of COVID-19? It's interesting. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. Well, this is why we need boosters, because they can help us stop. We still need the vaccines because it is the best way to prevent transmission. Yeah, not really. There was a study that came out saying that vaccines do not stop transmission or house-to-house transmission of Delta. What it does, and this article really explains that what the vaccines do is they prevent severe illness or death. Not even all the time, but, occasionally. And that is the main use of the COVID-19 vaccines. It does not prevent transmission. It just means that it just lessens symptoms, and so you may not be as severely ill and you may not die. Which I think a case could be made that might be worse in terms of a pandemic trying to end it, because then someone could have the virus. It's sort of small, and it's so small that the symptoms are so minor that they don't even think to get tested, because that's how minor it is. And so someone could just go around, like fully vaccinated, go around spreading the virus, and because they still have it, and it can be still transmitted, but they didn't even know that they had the virus. Now, as I have said many times, I am neither pro nor anti-vax. I think people should be allowed to choose what decision is right for them. I just don't think that, because we've seen a lot of vaccine mandates, And with all of this evidence and this other stuff from this and other stuff I've covered previously, it's shown that people are losing that, because people are losing their jobs. They're not allowed to go to takeaways or restaurants or movies. And all of this is happening because they aren't taking a vaccine which isn't even preventing transmission or preventing you from even getting the virus. But hey, while we're on the topic of vaccines and vaccine mandates, let's talk about France, which is a first for this channel. What is happening in France? Well, apparently, since August, they have been doing vaccine passports. Now, if you're a New Zealander, you're like, oh, wow, they've been doing it for a long time, because we've been having to deal with vaccine passports for, was it been a month? A year? I don't know. Not a year, but like, I feel like it's been a month or a few weeks. We've had to deal with, you had to enter certain places like restaurants and cinemas, you have to use a vaccine passport. I'm explaining like this to Americans or people. I think it's just America. Do they have vaccine passports? Yeah, anyway. So yeah, apparently France has been having to deal with this since August, and naturally, people have been protesting. With apparently 200,000 protesters hit the streets at one protest, which is cool. But the president of France, I don't even know how to say his name, and I don't care. He has stated, he's been urging people to get the vaccine, and that like freedom is only necessary if you don't contaminate others, and like if your freedom then goes out to contaminate people with the super scary, super deadly COVID-19, then that's when freedom becomes irresponsible. Dude, you are the president of France. It is your job to enforce the freedom of all of your citizens, and not say, oh, freedom is irresponsible because you won't take a vaccine that doesn't even do a whole heck of a lot. Or apparently not, as apparently, due to recent surveys, 60 to 70% of people support him, and he's up for re-election in April of 2022, so unless there's a huge scandal in 5 months, he's probably going to get in. So France, just remember, he called your freedom irresponsible, or said that freedom, there was a point where freedom becomes irresponsible. So if he becomes a fascist dictator, it was super obvious. Now, I know with a lot of the events that have happened recently, not just in France, but in worldwide, and it seems like a lot of people are getting in support of these vaccine mandates, and it seems like the governments are getting more and more power from using COVID to get more and more power. And I know this may seem a bit scary, and it seems like everyone's like not sure what they're going to do, but I just want to give this message of hope. Yes, things do look rather bleak, and I'm not going to say that it doesn't look bad, but things will get better. We need to keep fighting, sharing, and just trying to do what we can. Keep with the protests, hold the line. Again, it doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated or if you haven't been vaccinated. What matters is government control and the governments of the world using COVID as an excuse to get more and more power, as I've covered here, and there have been more stories about that. So if you guys have seen more stories that you think I should cover, definitely let me know, because we need to really work and unite on this as one. This isn't about conservative or liberals, white or black. This isn't a thing. This is just a people thing, because they've been trying to divide us for so long. And so now we need to unite and band together as one, because if we all just dropped all of this ridiculous nonsense fighting and we band together to stop government tyranny, there's nothing they can do. So even if times do look dark, just keep fighting and keep moving forward. But not literally fighting. Like don't go punching people. That's what they want. They want us to be violent and just go around hitting and beating people. We must maintain our composure and we must peacefully protest, because, well, they can't do anything about that. And if we just keep at it, we keep working and do protests, share stories, get people to support good people and get certain people in politics. I'm not sure who though, but as long as we just keep working at it, we will win. But anyway, guys, I know that this has been a long video, but I would like to thank you all for watching. Again, if there's any stories that you think I should cover, let me know in the comment section below. Link them down there. Yeah, not really much else to say. I don't really have an outro, so I'll just see you guys later. See ya.